They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to My Dad Rafal, co-host James Jardian, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. It's brought me back to the last time that we were happy.
Hey folks, welcome down to Security Rabbit Hole to an on-site edition of the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. I've got the doctor, the good doctor, Mr. Chase Cunningham, just came off of what I would consider a epic keynote.
Oh, thank you.
Complete with profanity, calling industry nonsense out, and it was awesome. This is a PG-rated-ish podcast, so I'll leave it there. I do hope that the folks that run Zero Trust World and ThreatLocker do post the video because it's awesome. Can we get slides?
I'll share everything I got.
All right,
yeah.
So we'll get slides. I'll post a link. One, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Give people that don't maybe live in under a rock or in a really, really small cave some background on you.
Sure. So retired Navy chief. I was a cryptologist, worked at NSA for a bit. I was a Forrester researcher and then been a consultant and stuff since then. Published 7 books. Number 8's in the mix right now. And yeah, there you go. That's number 7. So, yeah.
How not to lead. I like it.
Yeah.
that feels like I just finished. So my CEO suggested reading the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I feel like this one will be right up in that grain. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So highlight, preview, whatever for folks that didn't catch the keynote in there. Give me what you talked about without having to rehash the whole thing.
Yeah, the big crux of it is the title of it is The Grand Delusion. And I think many times in this space, we do stuff that is delusional. And it's funny to me because we're such like technology, data, analysis driven people, but we continue to do delusional things and then go, well, I'm wondering why this is not working. So, I just basically did a bunch of the research and the analysis and came back and said, like, look, here's the data, here's the numbers. If you're doing things that are in line with you're running counter to intelligence.
Yeah. That's
kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And here you go.
Einstein's definition of insanity, right? We've done the same.
And expect a different outcome.
But I like how you specifically called out just do the basics. Because look, if in 1990 something we could have done the basics, or any time between then and now, or maybe into the future, we just do the basics: asset management, patching, like simple shit, stuff. I didn't say that. Bleep. Simple
I have that
things.
effect on people.
Dang it! All right, I'll bleep myself out later. Simple things. I think we'd be in a much better position, but we never did. And so now we're trying to I feel like the data, this is how I explain it to executives, the data used to be here. And we were like, oh yeah, that's super simple. We're just going to do something basic and to defend that. It's not going anywhere. And then it left. They're like, well, what's the data? It's here, it's there, it's over here, it's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's in the cloud, it's on my iPad, it's in that web app. Like, well, how do you protect that? Spend a lot of money, keep buying layered tools, right?
Yeah, keep chasing the rabbit, right? I mean, yeah, there you go. That's where I have a different approach from John Kindervog, who's a friend of mine. I call him my bigger, smaller brother, right? Because he's smaller than me, but he's older.
Yes.
But I think really,
you're a tall dude.
Yeah, my model from him that's different is zero trust should be applied from the perspective of where can the adversary be successful.
Yeah.
I don't want to remove those trust relationships from their ability to be successful. The data side of the equation, like you were saying, if I put a gun to an executive's head today and said, I need to know where all the data is in your organization, or I'm going to blow your brains out, that'd be it. They'd be done.
That's the end of the hour.
Right? So, I mean, like for us to try and approach it from that perspective to start is a very difficult thing to do. But tangentially, a lot of orgs that have been doing this for a while, they're further along on a strategic approach to the problem than they give themselves credit for. And that's where I think a lot of things go wrong.
So much to talk through there.
Unpack it.
So much to unpack, yeah. I feel like, I've been doing this since the 90s, right? And we tried to get a handle on where data was, what it did, and the controls around it. The controls never moved with the data because it was hard, and DRM sucked, right? So we didn't do that.
So did DLP. DLP sucked.
But DLP, the side effect is DLP helped us find where the stuff was.
Sure.
Not whether it was leaving or not. As it was leaving,
totally
we're like, hey,
fair.
look, I found a database I didn't know about, right?
Yeah.
But there is so much truth in if you only knew where your data, sensitive information was. Because we treat, and I worked at a Global 5, right? I can attest to this. We treat data and our networks and applications like the peanut butter approach, like everything's equal, and it's not.
No.
Right.
Not if you're running a business.
Right. So some pieces of data you have are more valuable, some significantly less.
Some is just junk.
Some you could not. But the problem, I think, lies in the reason we haven't been successful, and stop me if you think I'm wrong, is that we haven't been successful in doing security by segmentation is we don't understand how things are connected. And if there's a secret tunnel between insecure container and secure container, well, you have...
Which is why the asset inventory and the analysis of things and the visibility and analytics and the context and all those things, I think, is much more critical than people give it credit. Like when the framework came out, that's why we created a pillar for visibility and analytics, because it is that critical. And that, too, is an interesting twist on the problem. Yeah. Folks will say, well, what do I do first? And it's like, well, I don't know. Where are you and where do you want to go and what's it look like? And if they can't start from there, you got to start from there. And, burstable infrastructure, like it's a very dynamic, difficult problem to solve for folks, to be perfectly frank.
I mean, when did you use another phrase that I love? Like, when did defense in depth turn into spend in depth?
Oh, gosh. When the VC folks realized how much money there is to make in this space, and they were like, cool, let's just go dump a bunch of cash in here. And I mean, like I said in my session, like there are thousands of vendors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just like go look at Richard Steenen and all those other folks that are publishing research. There's not that many problems in this space to solve.
Yeah, there are different viewpoints, different ways to solve any particular problem. Sure. I think the problem set is actually relatively well understood, or at least fairly well defined. The problem is we give data more modes to be more modes. So mobile, cloud, encrypted, not encrypted. God help us, AI is now in the mix. Yeah, I roll my eyes like that too.
Every time you say AI, a puppy dies somewhere. So.
What was it? If you're listening in the car, close your kids' ears. But every time, somebody once said, every time you say whatever the buzzword was, like God kills a kitten.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's awful. But I feel like it's kind of a true, fairly accurate. All right. You have a slide with the thousands of vendors in security. Because there's categories, and everybody's category is important, and everything has its place. But like, what are the core categories of security technology that you would say you need to be relatively proficient in, right? So my view, I work for a network security company, so I'm looking at it like you got to have something on a net watching your network. You got to have something watching your endpoint.
Agreed.
Something has to help you connect the dots.
Agreed. Something
has to help you orchestrate the response. But beyond that, I feel like you're putting, there are many other things. Identifying your data, important. And you can keep building on that. But beyond those 5, maybe 6 categories, what else is there?
I mean, I think people should move away from human-related controls like phishing training, because you can't train people to not click links. I mean,
we have tried, we have failed. Yeah, that's fair.
It's not a control. Again, for the record, train your people, but training them is not a control for a technology. So there you go. I think people should really rely very heavily on identity access management solutions that can solve that problem. However you do that, passwordless, biometrics, whatever. Just do something to make it where it is a little bit more difficult for somebody to use your shitty password, pardon my French, to log into the system. And then I think the other thing, too, that stands out to your point is to be able to understand really well at the network level where things are going and where it's moving.
Yeah.
And then you have an understanding of what's on the network. Until Elon Musk puts Neuralinks in our brains, we're still on the network.
Yeah, hard pass. You know what it brings me back to a story from 2004 or something. I was building an AppSec program when I was at GE Consumer Finance for a while. And one of the things that I required in concept as I was building the thing. Then it hit practice and it went horribly sideways. I asked for data flow diagrams.
Oh, good luck with that. Yeah.
Like young, naive me, right? New in, relatively new in cyber, less than 8, 9, 10 years, but always on the technical side, never really in the business side. So I saw a problem. I said, that has to be fixed. I assumed when a developer wrote an app, they would understand how you go from here to here and where the data comes from, where it goes. Like you said, no idea.
I mean, developers, we've done ourselves and developers a disservice by trying to make everybody security people. I don't want to write code. Like, I hate programming.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I think that we've said, oh, you developers, you guys need to know how to do this stuff and know where these things. That shouldn't happen. It should be like, you know what? I'm going to give you an ability and an environment and a capability to develop code as securely as possible. I understand that there's risk and nothing's going to be perfect, but the stupid stuff, I'm going to negate for you so you can do your job, and then we'll work our way forward. You know, from us cybersecurity wonks trying to go to them and say, you need to know how to do secure app dev. Why? Like, I don't want to do taxes. I don't want to do dev.
Yeah, you have your specialization. So there's this, I remember, this is OWASP AppSec USA. It was in Riverside, California, a million years ago. And someone you might know, Changxi Wang, stood up on stage next to Jeff Williams. And Changxi made a comment that I think may have physically disoriented and almost virtually, like, really knocked me over. She got up there and she was saying this to Jeff, and Jeff was kind of opening up, and she said, well, and she had this talk about the future of app security. And she said, relatively close paraphrasing, that the only way security in applications was going to go anywhere is we let developers develop what they need to, do what they do, and then build effectively a magic black box that you put code into, and the secure stuff comes out the other side. And at the time I thought, well, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, I'm a little older, and I've been in this industry quite a bit. I have a little more gray hair, and that doesn't sound so bad anymore.
Sounds like a pretty useful approach to the problem, you know?
Oh, it's...
Chenxi's one of those people that thinks 10 years down the road anyway. So
yeah. So she probably... And it was like, oh, well, that's kind of an academic approach to things, and that's not... But, you know, I think in cyber, we have a very real problem where we tend to have people that think in concrete security concepts, where the world is a little bit more abstract on the business side. They're like, yeah, that's great. I don't understand what that means. I'm just going to ignore it. Right? Agree, disagree?
Guns, guards, and dogs. I mean, that's where we're from. I mean, that's the space, right?
Yeah.
Of it's, here's how I defend. Here's how I keep the bad guys out. Here's how I know that I'll win. I can apply, force outside of the boundaries and stuff like that, where, like you said, in cyber and in business, those rules are not necessarily applicable.
Yeah, it's been a weird couple of years. Talk to me about, you made some comments about technology, not to call anybody out, but security companies that own too much market share that tend to wipe out, can create a significant issue, right?
Yeah.
But I think, I chuckled like everybody else did, but there's a part of me that says, yeah, but if you're not prepared for that kind of event, then whether it's a security tool or not doesn't matter.
The point that I'm trying to get at for their folks, number one, is that we in cyber, we are in a monopolistic system, which is a problem. The big players own most of the market, and everybody else shares the leftovers.
That was shocking. I didn't realize. Was the top 12 own 50% of the market?
51%.
51%?
And the other thousands own the rest.
Yeah.
So you're feeding off the sharks that are leaving the leftovers.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of that equation too is if you're reliant on some of these orgs at the scale that we're reliant on them for singular problem solving, we saw it. When things go haywire, you're talking about global.
They go very badly. Yeah. Is there any hope? You're talking about things go very badly. Is there any hope that we're getting some of the never-ending cavalcade of nonsensical breaches under control? Because, listen, here's where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
A while back, maybe even 10 years ago, we could use FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, right? We can say, if you don't implement this, bad things could happen. People went, it's not going to happen to me. And then a peer company got popped and like, oh, crap, can't have that. And so they spent a lot of money. Or they didn't spend the money and nothing happened, and those are equally bad. We're at a point now, I think, where we've spent, like you said, we have spent all the money. We're outpacing cancer research, which, by the way, I think also is bonkers. We make so much money in this industry, and we have solved so few problems.
I mean, I think the truth of the matter is, if we look at the kind of history of breaches and those things, right? Remember, I don't know, 7 years ago when it was like mega enterprise, government agency, mega enterprise. It's trailed off to a significant degree over the last few years. If you think about it, the majority of compromises that have happened have started with small vendors and third parties and contractors, whatever, that have got their way in to the enterprise.
Yeah, so that supply chain, that healthcare company thing.
But in the scope of the problem, I think if you say, have we solved a larger perspective of the problem, or have we made progress? Yeah, we made progress. Have we made enough progress that we can go, okay, we're crawling up the hill? No. I mean, the rock is still going to be pushed.
Yeah. I do feel like, was it Sisyphus that's pushing the rock up the hill? Like, every time we move the rock is getting bigger. We're still pushing, but the hill somehow gets taller, and at the same rate that we're walking up it. Yeah, well,
and I think too that there's the other side of it, that there are literally people that are underneath the feet of Sisyphus. They're like just moving the dirt out from underneath it.
Yeah,
and those are the bad guys.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, you got a little further, cool. Boop, boop, boop.
What do you think of supply chain? Because you brought it up. What do you think of the smaller entity somewhere down the supply chain, whether it's your janitor, your HVAC provider, one of your developers, right, in some third-party development company? Third-party risk management has been such a, as my friend Paul Muller used to say, goat rodeo. Yeah, redhead stepchild also works for the last forever years. That is not a spot I see a lot of cyber people investing in. It's being attacked from a policy and business perspective. Like, I would have expected a lot more tech to go into TPRM, third-party risk management, and I haven't seen it.
Well, I think that policy begins the process, and then technology follows that over time. I mean, that's kind of what this historic trend tells us.
Yeah.
However, I think that the days of organizations that are mom and pop shops and vendors and third parties saying, like, why would some bad guy come after me? They're finally starting to get through their head. Like, it's not because they care about you. It's because they care about who you're connected to.
Right.
And that is a risk for them.
Yeah.
Now the question is, how do they solve it? Which is a whole other issue.
Well, that's the issue, though.
Well, awareness begins something.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like, I'm always down in the doldrums about, like, man, this is just
it's depressing because you've got some of the companies that are the most exposed happen to be those small businesses, those companies that cannot afford to go pay Palo, CrowdStrike, HP, Cisco, name your big vendor. Those companies probably don't care about those companies. They can't pay the enterprise premium.
They shouldn't. They should be using MSPs and MSSPs.
Oh, so that I'm with you on, right? But so you're in this is a spot that I've banged my head against so many times, is you're small enough to where you can't afford a big company approach, but you've got the exact same people coming after you because they want the big company and you're their pathway in. And very few companies are building security models, whether it's an MSSP or tech, for those smaller companies. Tell me why, besides profit.
There's not enough profit.
Damn it.
I mean, the root of all evil, right? I
mean,
money's money. So there's no one that's cracked the code yet really on the scale that's needed to make that as profitable as people want. And I think that the tangent on that is the profitability that we have in this space is freaking bonkers.
Yeah, well,
so it's changed the expectations from the money people.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not making a 20%, 70%, 90% return.
The rule of 40, right? Like it's in my book. It's literally a software rule of like 40% growth year over year.
Year over year. Yeah.
Any other industry, that doesn't show up.
That's not real.
No, 40%. Like if you said we're making 40% margin at a minimum for, I don't know, toilet paper at Sears. Well, Sears not around anymore, but I'm showing my age there. Yeah, Walmart. They would flip.
Yeah.
You know, restaurant industry, they're lucky to cut a 10% profit.
Yeah.
We're at 40, and 40's like you're sucking. 40's the minimum.
Yeah, that's... So we're back to profit and money are the root of... Boy, I wish this was less depressing. All right, couple minutes here. I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions. I've walked around after lunch and asked people the same 3 questions. Number 1, give me the super layman's definition of zero trust.
My Texan in me says, "Don't trust nothing," which
Don't
is
trust nothing.
very clear. But I mean, really, the more academic version of that is remove inherent trust and default trust from systems.
Okay. The fact that everything has been built in terms of technology with default trust in mind. And by the way, you and I are wired to trust by default as humans. I mean, you're in the military, so maybe not.
No, I was going to say not me, but yeah.
the rest of humanity very much wants to be helpful. They'll open the door for you. They'll answer the call, whatever. All right, so that makes sense. Give me when you're talking about you go talk to ABC, Acme Corp, right? They're like, hey, zero trust. It sounds like a great idea. Where do I start? What does that look like?
Currently, my program that I approach folks with is I won't engage in a zero trust conversation unless they're willing to do a red team to start.
Okay.
And the reason is if our goal is to defend yourself from the bad guys, we need to see how the bad guys would get you and win. Not a pen test, a red team.
A red team, got it. Okay, because I would have argued that the value of a pen test for companies that haven't at least strengthened a security program is you're just finding holes through Swiss cheese and it's not that hard.
Yeah,
but goal oriented may be the difference there.
Yeah, so I mean the red team side of it I think should be focused on realistic attack vectors, and the other tangential stuff we'll figure that out based on better IT programs and policies.
Okay, so last question. What is the biggest barrier to success, to movement, to, I don't know, maybe success is the wrong word, but to momentum in zero trust for companies large and small?
Failed leadership and a lack of motivation and drive from the people that are in charge of it to actually make it go forward. And then also the marketing stick that continues to poison the space around people going, I can't do zero trust. Like, no, you can. Call it whatever you want. It is a strategy. You make it work for you.
I'm a little annoyed that a concept that is relatively, I mean, call it foundational to cyber, has been hijacked by the marketing departments of every cybersecurity company and VC in the world. Because a couple of years ago, when you guys started talking about it was like, that's a great idea. Then you go to RSA, you're like, damn it, everything is zero trust. In fact, I'm not going to call you out because you know who you are. But I walked past a booth at RSA in 2024, and it said, your all-in-one zero trust solution. And I went, oh, God, we're doomed. Because somebody's buying that, thinking that that's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword where it's good that we have money coming in, and it's good that we would never have executive orders on zero trust without there being a market for this. However, it's also problematic because people are spewing a lot of shenanigans into the space.
Shenanigans is a very polite way to say that.
There's another word that starts with SH.
Yeah, which we've already screwed that up. All right. Well, awesome. Hey, thanks for jumping on. If you guys haven't read this, it's a good one to read. I guess, this will be my trip home. No way, I'm driving home. Shouldn't be reading when I'm driving.
Drive.
It'll be my next plane trip read. Thanks for taking a minute, and good luck.
It's good to see you, man.
Hey, good seeing you. Thanks, folks.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.